You're listening to the Man That Can project with Lachlan Stuart, a global movement created to empower men and open up what's really going through their minds by having real and raw conversations about life's unique challenges and our individual ways of processing it all. Welcome to the Man That Can project.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Project podcast. This one's exciting for me, even though Cam's not Oh, he's looking at me now. I'm excited to have a good long-time friend, Cam Russell, join us. You're down in Newcastle, or you're Maitland, right?
No, I live in Newcastle, have a business in Maitland.
Got a business in Maitland. And currently, as I'm looking, so we're doing this over Skype. We are we're obeying the social distancing rules. So ideally, I think we'd both love to be sitting next to each other, holding hands or leaning on one another. That's always how we seem to get things done.
It always seems to happen in person.
Yeah, I know. It's a beautiful thing. But yeah, we've known each other for, I think we worked out the other day, like 7-8 years now.
Yeah, I think it's just over 7 years.
A long time. And we met at a golf day, funnily enough, like back when I just started network marketing. For those who don't know, I was in network marketing. I was, and I fucking frothed on it. And at the same table with me at a golf day was yourself, Ado, and Adam. And, I think we hit it off from there, had an awesome day. And then we've just stayed in contact, always catching up in Sydney and Brisbane. And we went on a surf trip last year, which was awesome. But yeah, one reason why I'm really excited to have you on, and I know we'll sort of start touching on it. I'll get you to share who you are, I guess, and your story. But as a person, you're someone I look up to, especially from, I like to think of myself building a life from a holistic point of view and not neglecting anything. And from the outside looking in, as I said to you, you seem to have it dialed in. I'm sure you have your challenges and stuff, but from the outside looking in, you're a successful entrepreneur, business owner, but also, make the time to have fun all the time, travel a lot, surf, and I admire that. So I guess we dive into that, I'd love you to share with everyone listening, who is Cam the Man Russell?
Thanks, Lachie. Great to be on the podcast, mate. It's actually an honour. I only saw this week that the podcast is charting, and I texted you, I said, mate, let's do this. Let's skyrocket this thing for you.
Let's get this to number one, mate. We've gone Brazil now since we last spoke. So we're charting Brazil, New Zealand, Australia, Czech Republic, Taiwan. I don't know how all these random places are getting on the charts, but I'm frothing.
It's crazy, mate. Congratulations. It's a credit to you and what you're doing, and obviously what the Man That Can, project is and evolving into. And yes, mate, that golf day was one of the best days when you're at a social golf day during a week, literally when, a beer a hole is acceptable and you can kind of just have a good time and let your hair down. After a conference, it's always good fun.
Mate, my golf is, as we worked out, exceptional. if I
for
want
one shot in the 18.
Yeah, chasing the ball.
Yeah, mate. I mean, as you said, my journey, I've been involved in the sporting side. Why we're probably still good mates is because we shared so many common interests in sport. Obviously you played rugby. I played a lot of different sports growing up, any sport that I could play, from tennis to cricket, to rugby league, not rugby union, surfing. I did it all, and it was a massive interest. And then when I finished school, I went to university and I studied sports coaching management. And that's where I really delved down into more of the fitness side of things. I was lucky enough to do some work experience with the Manly Sea Eagles, the rugby league club.
That's favourite side, mate. I still haven't told him you worked with them.
Yeah. That was a great experience. I started with work experience there, for my first year at university. And then obviously in my second year, they offered me a job and a role there doing strength conditioning. And that's when, I really looked at, the professional side of things, because always wanting to grow up and not really having the ability or focusing on one particular sport for that amount of time to become a professional sports person. My probably best shot was at tennis, which I didn't know until many, many years later, until I was probably 18 or 19 when, my mum told me that, my tennis coach said, I probably had the ability to go on.
You've been, the good example of Bernard Tomic.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, that bloke knows how to blow something up, definitely. I mean, that's interesting for me to look at, people like Bernard Tomic, who's just 100% ability. There's not a lot of work ethic there for someone to get to that level and to be able to play on the world stage like that, like he does, and beat world-class players like top 5, top 10 players, and still just carry on and take it for granted. I'm sure he'll look back in life and at his tennis career and, really regret, something like what he's done.
Yeah, oh, mate, I couldn't agree more. And I think we see this a lot with athletes. I know, for myself, the last representative team I played in, I think, 11 out of the 13 were, got scholarships with NRL sides or contracts, right? And there were some extremely talented lads in that we played with, and one particular went down to the Broncos. He was sort of my arch rival, but we became great mates when we started it because they were opposing numbers in the centres there. And he had the most potential, like was playing under 20s with the Bronx, and then just, spiraled out, unfortunately. And we see it time and time again with so many people with potential in all aspects that start thriving, but they just don't get managed well or don't get the support networks or the skills to carry on through that, right?
Yeah, 100%. I saw it, at Manly, especially 16s and 18s. There was a guy who literally they brought in, they didn't really want him. He got cut from another team. And then they brought him in. They didn't give him a trial in the first one. And then, at the last trial before the season started, the second trial, they thought they'd give him half a game. They put him on, he kind of impressed. So they kept him after that cut. He got to the next trial and put him on a little bit more then and impressed. And he was the last one to make the squad. Right. And this guy's name's Kieran Foran, who's gone on to, win premierships for, yeah. He was like he was literally, the coaches were talking about they're going to cut him. They don't really want him. He came from North Sydney.
Yep.
They cut him. They didn't want him. And this guy he had ability, but he didn't have it. He just had a natural football brain, but just showed if you could actually get on and play football and showed that the work ethic that he had, he could go on, right? He's gone on from nearly cutting that, and that's probably his career gone to, then playing a couple of years later, playing, NRL. I mean, later that season, the game plan went from, trying to play a game plan. The game plan went to just give the ball to Kieran, and let him do something. He started out in the centres and then he ended up at 5'8". And then he went through with Des Hasler and won premierships with Manly and, then played for New Zealand. So
him and Daly Cherry Evans were a good combo for a while as well.
100%, and it just shows like some need a little bit of luck, but the hard work that he put in definitely paid off. And then you have we had William Hopewadi, another prime example. Obviously a good family blood, but no one worked harder than him in the gym.
Yep.
So and then you had all these guys with so much ability across the whole competition, right? And most of them don't even go on to play NRL.
Yeah, it's crazy. But going back into sort of your.
Yeah, so obviously spending time with a professional rugby league team and seeing that go through, which is an awesome journey. For a couple of years, I finished uni. I did one more season there with them, and then I went over to the UK. I went to London.
Cam goes traveling.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was like, the head. Then I realized that there's only one head strength conditioning coach at every individual club. So you look at that. There's 16 NRL teams. There's 5 Super Rugby teams, and then there's probably 15 AFL teams, right? So there's 35 head jobs in Australia, in Australia for strength conditioning.
Was that a tough decision for you to walk away from that? Like, because you're obviously having a role with the club, you were closer than a lot of people who are aspiring to get to that position. So to sort of be considered in that top group, is it hard to walk away from and go to London?
Yeah, it was, but it wasn't, because being in that inner sanctum, obviously it's a great job from the outside, and personal trainers could earn more money than what the sub strength conditioning guys get, or the people helping out. And I had a lot of respect for the head strength conditioning guy there and the head trainer, and they'd been there 8-9 years, just waiting their time and going through it. And one of them was only about 7 or 8 years older than me. And he was the head guy and he'd done his time. He's like, mate, this is what he's going to be honest with me. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not really that phased. I've seen what's not the inner sanctum like. Great experience. Really, really enjoyed it. You could make a career out of 100%. But for me, it was, I had, other things that I, wanted to scratch, I suppose, bigger itches. I wanted to travel. I love to travel, as you know. So I was like, I'm going to go overseas. I had a few contacts through the football. I met up with one club over there. It was the old London Broncos. I met up with them, and Billy Peaton, the old Newcastle Knights legend. He was the head coach over there. So I met up with him at a pub in London. He said, mate, we've got, some sort of role with you. It's a little bit different over here. We're not as professional, but we can definitely do something. And I was like, do I really want to do this, go back into this grind, or do I want to go and travel and do what I wanted to do? Which I went over there to travel and experience the world. So I thought about it.
It's awesome. One thing I love about you is you question everything before you, like, I think a lot of people would just see, even for myself, if I had, left overseas and automatically someone wants me again in the professional sporting world, I'd probably be like, fuck yeah, let's do it. But it's good that you had that awareness to check in with what you felt you really wanted and needed. And, if you left the sporting field for a reason, then it doesn't really make sense to go back into it in another country, right?
Yeah, I think so too. And I didn't see a lot of opportunity. Like, I mean, if it was something like a different sport where they traveled a lot through Europe too, if it was like, I know some of the soccer, they call it football, or even the rugby union, they play around Europe.
Yep.
So that would be a great way. Obviously, I'd get my travel paid for. I wouldn't be on great money, but that's okay. I'm not there for the money,
Yep.
but I could go and do it. Whereas the league was literally based purely in the UK, and the UK didn't really attract me. Why I went to the UK was for Europe at the doorstep.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I brushed that and I went down and worked in a Quicksilver surf shop down in Newquay, which is kind of like the Gold Coast of the UK, but obviously a lot different.
Yeah. What's that like in comparison?
For the summer, it's funny. Like, so you get the I suppose the 3 months, the June, July, August kind of period down there, and it's havoc. Like, you just see, Friday morning, in comes all the hens parties and all the bucks parties into town. And then everything's just like, you go to the pubs down there and you can get $2 pints at different pubs, or £2 pints and stuff like that. So it's the British way of drinking as many pints and snake bites and things as you can, on this coastal town where the surf's absolutely rubbish. And, it's funny. I mean, it was crazy, but it was super fun. I had another Aussie mate there who I grew up with. He was living there for the same reason, for a bit of work and stuff like that. So we made some really cool friends, and it was good. It was a memorable summer for sure.
Yeah. Would you ever go back?
I've been back. So then after that summer, I traveled around Europe for a couple of months and then went back into London and started living there. And I went back, it's probably about 2 or 3 years after I'd left, just as a stopover or holiday kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy London anywhere near as much as a tourist as what I did when I was living there.
Why do you feel that is?
I don't know. I don't know if it was homely or because, London's super busy, big city, lots going on. I didn't feel settled. And I think, you go to those little pubs and when you're a local or you've got friends around, everyone kind of goes to the pub. And, because back then when I was over there, which was 2007, 8, and 9, they didn't really, the whole coffee scene wasn't in yet. So if you wanted to meet someone on the weekend, it was like, oh, let's meet at 9 or 10. It's like, no, let's just push that back to 11. And that's an excusable hour to go and have a beer or a cider, at the pub. And that's where your day starts. And that's the crazy thing is it's such a drinking culture over there, and that's okay. Where here in Australia, it's I suppose it's like a more of a exercise-based culture where we want to get out and do our exercise to earn the beers and stuff like that we have, in the afternoon. Like, the morning's all about exercise and coffee and catch-ups, and the afternoon's about, beers, sport, and
surf.
So
Frothies, mate.
Yeah, exactly. So, mate, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I worked in a kind of a high-end boutique personal training studio over there, and I had some crazy, clients who, I had like from, really famous pop and rock stars over there to people famous on TV who, soapies and, presenters on TV. Yep. I had no idea about. I had people own their own record label who would work in Paris and live in London. You know, we had the people who managed like the Beckhams and the Spice Girls, 19 Entertainment, who created American Idol. Those sorts of people coming to train with us. And my dead set favorite was an old pop rock star famous over there who became a porn director. Yeah, so yeah, he became a porn. I won't throw his name out there, but yeah, he became a porn director, and you just crazy stories. I've never met a guy with so much, charisma ever. You know, his missus was, a L'Oreal, face of L'Oreal Europe. So, but he was this short little, imagine Eminem looking guy, blonde hair, bleach blonde hair, but that's just his natural color. But 95 kilos, just a little tubby kind of guy, and this is this guy, and. Man, we'd go to the pub on a Friday night. He'd spin a yarn, and he'd just have us eating out of his palm. But then, any girl in the pub would just eat out of his palm. Like, he's just had this charisma. Wasn't good looking, anything like that. And he taught us a lot.
It shows just the power of developing good communication skills, right? Like, because often, it's interesting. People who aren't as fortunate in the looks department are generally more, and actually that's just a fucking blanket. Don't even listen to what I just said there. But generally they've got really outgoing personalities and great communication skills. And I think, there's a lot we can all learn from that. Like, just one thing for me that it was probably around the time where we met, I was at a pub and I used to respond to questions and things with like, oh, that's fucked, or that's shit. And this guy pulled me up at the pub and he's like, can you give me like a real response? What does that's fucked even mean? And I got really angry at him because I was like, I didn't like being pulled up. But then I was like, maybe I can learn to articulate myself rather than just using a limited amount of Aussie rubbish. Right. And that for me was, through that whole process, I was like, I can actually learn to stop being a monotone mumbler. I can actually learn to communicate better. It's all skills that we can learn.
Yeah, I mean, and it was fascinating because he could communicate on all different levels.
Yep.
And how he did it. And I think a lot of it comes down to his just confidence or self-confidence.
Yep.
He would just be minding his own business, but how it came across and how it was delivered was received completely different, and it was just crazy. Like, it wasn't from a sleazy way. It wasn't from anything. Like, he could have a conversation with especially females, because we were sitting there and it's like, it didn't matter what age they were. And they would be really intrigued with everything he was saying and stop and really, really listen. And it could be over a type of wine they're drinking, or it could be over something, all of a sudden he's looking into their hand, and telling them something about their hands. Like, and it was kind of, he goes, yeah, it's just a delivery on it and how it's perceived.
That's so unbelievable.
Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy, but it was just an eye opener. Like, it doesn't matter, what you look like. The communication skills and things like that is just super important.
I think it's one of the most important things that we can learn as humans. I think, we spoke about this the other day when we caught up, like just internal communication, like being honest with yourself and understanding yourself, giving yourself answers and asking yourself good questions, but that then helps relay to the outside world, like the boundaries that you set, the expectations, how you communicate, how people feel around you, all starts with that communication. If people don't master it, which a lot of people don't want to, right? It's uncomfortable to ask yourself questions sometimes.
Yeah, I think it comes down to being confident, or being comfortable is probably a better word to start with, being comfortable with yourself. And so many people aren't comfortable with themselves. And then if you're not comfortable with themselves, it leads to not being comfortable around other people. It does. It 100% starts internal. It's massive. If you can fix your own mind, if you can look at something differently, if you can take a negative situation into a positive situation, and then how that's perceived, and then how that comes across with everything you're saying. I mean, we all have, friends out there. We have friends who are really positive and ones we want to hang around more because, you can turn a bad situation or let's say a bad, atmosphere in a pub or an empty pub into like a fun time, where you've got, the more negative sort of, friends or circle of friends where, oh, this place is shit, let's move on, let's go somewhere else. Like they're trying to chase it. It's like, well, nah, we're here, we've got full control of this pub, we can do whatever we want. And then, we can just make this our own and have our own fun and turn, a bad situation into a positive situation. And it's putting those people around you and then looking at, different situations, whatever it may be, work, personal relationships, into more of a positive one.
100%. I think it's such a key thing, and something that, you know, takes time. I think I was saying it on a Facebook Live this morning. I hate it when people just say, "Oh, just be positive, focus on the positive." It's like, shut the fuck up. It's not that simple. Like, I get the idea behind it, but it's once again communicating it in a way. It's like, what it's like every other skill or muscle. It takes time to develop, and you're not going to, you know, just make the decision and be on the straight and narrow. You're always going to have times of weakness or going back to the default where you've got to go, oh, I need to bring myself back on track here and go back to, you know, doing what helps me view things in a more positive light.
And I think it's that recognizing that mechanism that changes too when you flip back or switch back to default mode. If you go walk into a situation or you get a bad text message, email, or have a bad call, and then automatically switching back into your default mode is recognizing when you switch back and doing something in that moment to change your state and get out of that state into, you know, a different state of mind. It doesn't have to be a positive state of mind, but it's recognizing that you've kind of switched back or gone default.
I think that's happened a lot recently. Like, we've seen it with obviously COVID-19. People are fighting over fucking toilet paper and stuff. Like, they've gone back to survival mode, and everyone's lost sort of their personal standards that they've set for themselves. And, you know, a lot of people haven't done what you just said, where you check in within yourself and go, is how I'm acting really how I want to respond to an event like this? Or am I just doing what everyone else is doing? Right. And I think it's cool at the moment. Everyone's being tested. And I think if everyone is honest with themselves, myself included, we all got a bit of work to do.
Oh, 100%. You know, it's one of those things. You go to the supermarket, all you really want is toilet paper, you know, and they're all out of stock. It's like, shit, you know, how do you respond to that and how do you take that on? You can go, okay, well, actually, you know, how many rolls do I have at home? You know, how many days can I go? What are my other options? And then be content and recognizing that default. Or you could just, you know, completely blow up, abuse, you know, someone, the poor young person working at Woolies or Coles, you know, about there's no toilet paper there. You know, the same thing in the situation of, all right, cool. Well, if you walk into work and you've got, you know, stood down, or there's no work, or your cafe or your gym's, you know, had to been forced closure, you know, how do you see that versus what's your reaction? How do you take that on? Your default mechanism could be just, you know, absolutely filthy, blah, blah, blah. Whereas, you know, the poor business owner or that poor situation had no idea the government's come in and said, you know, forced closure, you know, no more. How do you respond to that? And I don't think it's more how you respond to that. I think right now it's like, okay, well, just recognizing that this is a changed situation that isn't ideal, but how, you know, what's my mechanism out of this?
We may as well touch on this while we're here, and then we'll sort of loop back around to.
Yeah, I like that. The best thing about a podcast, you just shuffle around.
Yeah, this is not a timeline. This is just whatever pops up. But I think, you know, obviously, there was going to be coming up shortly that you are obviously own a few businesses, and one of those being a gym. How was it for you? Like, how was your experience, and how have you responded to, you know, Sunday night, ScoMo's up there. I was watching on Facebook Live. I don't know where you were watching, but he's like 12 p.m. tomorrow, all gyms are shut. That's not much time to sort of fucking get your head around the whole thing. Like, how did you respond? What went through your mind? What's that been like for you over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, crazy time, right? So I'm like you. Like, I did actually, I saw it pop up. Something notified me on my phone that, you know, obviously there's announcements going on. I never watch the news, especially Sunday night, you know. So I'll go from watching it on my phone to then turning it on the telly so I could actually see it better. And then obviously the reception kind of thing. Yeah, then I never watch the news because I think the news is probably about 90% negative in different situations. If, you know, a cat stuck up the tree, or, you know, there's whatever. It's a lot. I'd rather just get fed the information from people around me, and if I need to find out more information about it. But yeah, I'm watching that news, and all of a sudden, you know, it comes over that, you know, indoor fitness facilities, including gyms, have to close by 12 o'clock tomorrow. You know, I'm sitting down. It's probably 9:15 by now on a Sunday night after a great weekend. You know, and I was like, holy shit, you know, I would have said the F word, but this is a podcast.
You can drop it,
yeah,
man.
I know you do. All right, cool. Well, you know, I quickly reflected, and one thing that I was grateful for right then is I kind of preempted our team, right? The team that we have, our staff, and obviously all our PTs and things like that. And I said, hey guys, this is a potential. If this thing goes on, you know, we might have to do it. We're really going to have to pivot, you know, the business and what we're going to do. it's going to be out of our situation, out of our control. So I was super grateful at that moment when it got announced that I actually pre-warned the PTs, because their training business literally gets cut off, you know, let's say 80% right there and then, because it's mostly in the gym.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, cool. Well, I can look at it like this is going to suck. Like literally all my income from the gym is turned off tomorrow, you know, with less than like 12 hours warning, right? Or just over. You know, how am I going to cop that? So I actually wrote a good post about this, and it literally went like this. Okay, cool. I was like, oh, how am I going to go to sleep? People were calling me that night, messaging me. Obviously they've seen the news, blah, blah, blah. And I was super like, oh, that's cool. People actually thinking outside, you know, and actually caring and showing full care and the support. So I ended up falling asleep probably about 11 o'clock, wake up the next morning. I went down, jumped in the ocean. I was like, right, sweet, let's drive to work, you know, preparing myself in my mind, you know, what have I got to do? Just got to go through all these process checklists, blah, 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 shut the whole gym down, because everyone knew they could train until midday.
Yep.
So then I'm in there and I call mum on the way to the gym. I was like, you know, mum says, how are you feeling? I said, oh, I don't really know how I'm feeling, right? It's the good thing about it is it's forced closure. It's not me going to close my gym down and other gyms are still going. I'm content with that. It's obviously an external thing that the government makes us do this. And then she goes, I don't really know what to say. And I said, Mum, I don't really know what to say back to you. I said, I've never been in this situation. I said, all I know is that, you know, we'll be fine. You know, so then I go in and everyone's pretty supportive. And then I was like, righto, guys, you know, that night I said to the team, I said, you know, let's shut the gym down by 12 and let's just at 12:30 sit down and talk about, you know, what we're going to do from now on. So, mate, it was definitely emotional. It was kind of like, when I think back now, it's like, okay, well, what I really think of it is like, I'm content, you know, that it was a forced closure by the government. It was out of my control. It was nothing that I did in business or anything like that could do that. You know, most people are super understanding of the whole situation. They're bummed that they can't train. It's not like they can go and do anything else.
Yeah.
So then obviously did that. And then obviously my most important thing was then the team. So we sit down 12:30 and go through, you know, what can we do? We can do outdoor training. We can do this, and make a plan of attack for them. So they could walk away after that meeting with a plan of attack for their own business, because essentially their livelihood was cut off, you know, that night from that announcement. And then, you know, I sit back after the day and go down and write kind of like all the processes that's gone through my head over the last kind of 24 hours, or let's say 22 hours, because about 7 o'clock I was sitting down having a beer at the beach, went for another swim. And
Oh, mate, one thing I love about you is that the first thing you did when you woke up was went to the beach, and like you still look after yourself. Like that self-care is still a important thing. I fucking love that.
Because I think it would have had to be in lock, because I wouldn't have been able to go in and process and have conversations with people and have that without me kind of clearing my head and being kind of, I suppose, more clearer on the process and what's going to undertake the coming day. And then I went down to kind of deload, let's say, you know, at the end of the day is go and do something. If it's taking the dog for a walk, or if it's sitting out on your balcony and, you know, having a beer or whatever, you know, I took a beer down the beach and did that. And it was just me downloading the day, right? And I actually diarized the whole kind of my thought process and through it. And it was just taking everything like from internally that's been processed to going, okay, cool. Well, that was a fuck day, or that was an interesting day, or that was, you know, a challenging day, but that's what it was. You know, tomorrow's a new opportunity. And then how do we look at that? How do we take that? And how do we kind of move forward? I mean, I've got to do this tomorrow, this tomorrow, this tomorrow. That's cool. I'm content with that, you know, and just going through these process.
It still blows me away just how you process things, right? Like, so for those who are listening, like your income just got turned off. Like, it's like you get a phone call, or you didn't get it, but imagine getting a phone call being like 12 o'clock tomorrow, all debits are stopped. There's no money coming in. If that had happened to me, like I know it happened to an aspect of my business, but I would have been like, fuck. And I don't reckon I would have slept. I would have gone into panic mode. I definitely know I probably wouldn't have gone and looked after myself in the morning. I would have been straight in, you know, defense mode, which how you've handled it. And I think is the most incredible thing, like making sure. And I think it's something that I aspire to be able to respond like in the future, is like, we need to take that time to download or deload or whatever you want to call it and get ourselves right, so that when we go to talk to the people who we have to talk to, we can give our most level-headed response, so then you don't have to clean up stuff later. Because there's a lot of people who just went out there in a high emotional state and have made more problems for themselves, right? And that's probably maybe what I may have done had I had a gym to close down. So I think it really just highlights the importance to me of like making sure you take that time for yourself. Like you said, you journaled the whole day, you accepted that it was a shit day, like it was just one of those things. It is what it is, but tomorrow is a brand new opportunity, rather than sort of holding on to it and playing that victim mindset where it's like, oh, they've turned off everything, I'm stuffed. Just like, let's get on with it.
Yeah, I think the response is, the fight or flight response, which I often look at. Like, you can either fight the situation where there's no point, right? The government says so, it's mandatory, or the flight. How can we fly through this situation? And that's where I think is a thing that I look at in any situation. If you get bad news, whatever, good news, fight or flight response. When something drastic comes up in your life, do you fight, or do you your own fight or flight response, and then look at that in that situation and kind of learn from that. I probably couldn't be more proud of how it's unfolded and how smoothly this process has gone, because it's forced me to look at other areas of my life. Like, okay, cool. Well, then, there's announcements. Okay, well, there's an option there. If I've got a mortgage, I can put mortgage things on freeze. If, let's look at our expenses that I have. Let's look at, different areas of that. Now let's look at the whole business model. Let's look at, online training, virtual training versus face-to-face training. That's an option too. And that's more the PT side of things when we're doing that. So yeah, it's kind of like, can you reinvent yourself, in this situation at what you're facing? And I saw something like Jeff Jout put up, and I really, really loved it. Like, I was sitting down at the beach that night and like looking around, and there was hardly anyone around because everyone's kind of obviously in this, COVID-19 situation. But looking at the situation now, that day was shit. That day was, emotional, whatever. But tomorrow's a new day, and then I can only look forward to tomorrow, and I can only deal with what tomorrow brings, and I can only move forward from that. I can't change the fact that the gym is now closed, but maybe this is the new normal, and this is the new normal for now for me, and that's what I just have to accept. And what can I do in the new normal right now to then make do the best the best job I can do, be my best person, and look at different avenues and ways around this. I look at it now and people are like, how are you going? And I'm like, well, it's cool. I just see it as forced holidays.
Yo, what do the holidays look like for you, Cam?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I mean, I don't really like talking about this because I've probably never surfed, unless it was school holidays back when I was a grommet. I've never surfed. I think I surfed like maybe 13 or 14 times last week. 13 it was actually. I missed one day. I didn't surf twice. Nice. I've been surfing heaps. I've been, playing the guitar, relearning the guitar, doing things like that. I've been doing some online stuff. I've been doing some podcasts, which I've always wanted to do. I'm cleaning, a part of my massive 2-bedroom unit, one kind of day at a time, right? Like, the other day I was cleaning when was the last time you cleaned the gauze, or your fly screens on your windows or your sliding doors? Like, I did that the other day. Like, and for me, because I do like to go, you, Lockie, it's like, go from this to that, commit to so much, want to give so much and do so much. It's forced me to slow down a bit, which has been quite good. I've mentally prepared. This could be, we could be closed for 6 months. We'll be fine in this situation because, we've taken the measures. I've had good honest conversations with, staff members and people around us and landlords and things like that. So yeah, it's just really, how do you pivot out of a bad situation and make it okay, or realize this is the new normal, right? The new normal is we can't go to pubs, we can't catch up.
Yeah.
Got to do things like podcasts to communicate, or we've got to FaceTime our friends or do Zoom calls or house party app or whatever,
What, so let's go back a bit. So obviously the mindset that you have right now and how you've approached it, like, was that built, or were you just born that way? Like, let's go back, where were we at? We're like 2009 or a little bit further from that after you just gone back to the UK. But at what point did you sort of dip your toe into business and I guess even start working on yourself to a degree to have the perspective and the resilience that you have at the moment?
Yeah, I think the business side of things was probably always around. Like my parents owned a car dealership, so we always grew up around, they owned car dealership and toy world shops, you know, growing up in a toy world shop.
Toy World.
Yeah. Remember those, the big
that
purple
place.
suits.
Mate.
I know. So, you know, people are like, oh, that would have been amazing. But yeah, imagine spending every one of your, you know, Saturdays, you know, down at the shop because mum's got to work there all day Saturday, and then you got to be there from, you know, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been ideal.
You get kind of over, you know, your mates are at bloody parties having red frogs and all these ollie bags, and then yeah, you're in the shop sitting behind. But yeah, so they always had business, and then when I was overseas, my sister was an interior designer, and then all of a sudden she started her own. She left that and opened up a cafe. And I was just seeing these things from over there. Like, you know, obviously the cafe seems to be going pretty good. Get those reports. I surprised her on my return home from London in 2000 or Christmas time 2009, so 2010. This little cafe that she took over, this little kiosk, was actually the one from Home and Away, and the lineup was out the door. Like, it was like I had to wait like 25 minutes to order, and she was at the counter, and she had no idea that I was home. And I just went up, and she looked at me 3 times, going, "Oh my God, what the fuck are you doing home?"
Wow.
And yeah, and so I just saw her, took something from that. And when I was in London, when I was working, my boss lived out of London, so he wasn't technically there. He said, "Mate, you run this like it was your own." And I did. I'd work hard for 4 days, and then I'd have a long weekend and go skiing. My biggest fear that I had my phone with me, that I'd run into him in the ski fields because he was always skiing. So I would go to France for, you know, 3 or 4 days, you know, but pretending I'm work, but do my hours before that. So when I was over there, I was like, you know, I always wanted to kind of work for myself instead of someone else. And that's where that kind of came in. And I came back and saw my sister fully shift from what she was doing, interior design, to having a cafe. And I always wanted to do that. So I think the business side of things and working for myself is something that kind of I was brought up in.
Yep.
But by having that mindset, I think it was, you know, probably early on when I started the business, and then obviously we got into network marketing, and the growth that you need, one, to run your own business, and then two, to you know, to be network marketing that comes with the personal development side. That's where kind of my mindset really shifted, because in business, obviously you come to situations that don't fall your way, and it's how you deal with those. And then, you know, obviously in network marketing, it's all about, you know, personally developing yourselves. And I really got involved with, you know, we share these books. I always message each other saying, you know, what books you're reading at the moment, or podcasts, or audio books are you listening to? What ones do you recommend? You know, hit me with it. That's where it started. So probably, you know, I opened the gym in 2012. I think we met 2013.
Yeah.
Or 40, I can't remember. But that's where it kind of started. And then I was learning from other people, like other people, successful people in business, and they say they were investing heavily in their own personal development. And I was like, well, if I want to grow this thing, the business that I want to do, I need to invest into my own personal development. And then once I did the first book, and then the first event was the best thing that I went to, then I really saw what it came from, the belief, the self-belief, how you react. Obviously, business situations, things go your way, things don't. You know, life situations, things go your way, things don't. It's how you react to those and how you overcome them.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. What do you feel like over that sort of transitional period? Like, actually, just even back there, I can't believe that was the Home and Away cafe, and that's fucking pretty cool.
Yeah, the boathouse. Yeah,
big fan.
Big fan. We all were back in those days.
Yeah,
at our age, right?
Yeah, 100%. I'm full of grays. But going through that process of like, I know for myself, when I got into the network marketing, like I lost a lot of mates, and, you know, the challenges were there, but I never really viewed them as challenges. I just thought it was like that next stepping stone. I had to overcome this, and I would get to that next phase. What was it for you that kept you persevering through it all? Because, you know, obviously you would have had moments, I think everyone does, where you go, fuck this, I can't keep dealing with this sort of stuff. I'd rather just go back and chill out. Like, what kept you so persistent to creating that life and overcoming those challenges for yourself?
I think I knew what I wanted, or I knew where I wanted to get to in regards to that. I think for me, like, I mean, a lot of people who go do network marketing, I've been in there since 2013, you know, so 7 years now, is it? And I've never had anyone in my, you know, circle of friends, you know, ditch me or be really, really negative towards me, about the whole situation, because I probably took it that way, that I suppose I had posture around it, and I had belief in my own self to do this. And I knew I wasn't doing anything without of integrity that wasn't coming from me. It was like, you want to do this, you don't, that's cool. There's no skin off my nose. But I think it's being comfortable with yourself, and then having the integrity in how you come across. It's the perfect example is the sleazy salesman, right? It doesn't matter. Like, we think of sleazy salesmen, you automatically think of used car salesmen or real estate agents, right? And I'd hate to have that stigma around me if I was in that profession.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like, I want to add value to people, but I don't want to be like them. I think that's like, I don't want to be like that, and I don't want to be like, used car salesman. I don't want to be like a sleazy, real estate agent. So it's like, I don't want to do that, but I always knew where I wanted to get to. And then it was like, okay, well, what if people are done who are there now? Can I emulate what they've done? Do I ask them questions? What are the sorts of things that they did? What road did they take? What things did they learn? How did they overcome them? I love the stories of people who are really successful. They lose everything and they come back with a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
I hope I don't be like that, because obviously these guys they're probably the bigger players, they'll risk a lot and lose a lot, but they're happy to come back. I don't want to, risk a lot to lose a lot. I'd rather, learn from their mistakes, but then, how do I probably protect myself in that situation so I don't have to go down that line or make silly decisions like that.
I think that highlights something for where I went wrong when I started. And this goes back to also what we were touching on with communication. When I first started network marketing, I was what I would consider a really poor communicator. I could mumble. I was aggressive. I had never done sales. I'd never done any of that sort of stuff. So my skill set was terrible. So my approach was to annoy the fuck out of people. Like, I was excited, and I thought everyone should be doing what I'm doing, because it excited the hell out of me. But I think over time, and asking myself similar questions to what you just sort of listed off, what have the successful people done? What do I need to learn here? How can I improve my approach? How can I be genuine in what it is that I do? I learned new ways of being, right? And that made me not just a better network marketer, but just a better person in general. Because I think they go hand in hand. The skills that we're willing to learn, whether it's for whatever reason, also make us more valuable, and I think able to add value to more people in other aspects of our life. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to go through that to learn those skills, and that's what keeps them stuck in a lot of aspects of their life. Whether it's the fact that I learned to communicate purely for the sake of learning to be a better network marketer has really helped the Man That Can project, now my relationships, all these other aspects. But I learned it in a different environment.
And that's the thing I was going to say, is like, if you didn't have those learnings or those lessons from network marketing, so like, obviously you were let's say a negative builder who hated your job, right?
Yep.
And then you've gone in to try and, take that negative mindset in, and to then, do some network marketing to try and get yourself out of the building game and into something you really want to do. There's obviously going to be, people say you don't carry baggage, but we all do. We all carry baggage, right?
Mate, I had a weight vest on.
Yeah, right. So you're trying to have these, real positive or helpful conversations with these people who aren't really sure who you are or what you are and what you do. With this negative kind of background or luggage carrying around. And, and I don't think if you went from that mindset of, straight out of, being a builder or where you were there without all those lessons that you learned in network marketing, or even let's say the journey,
yep.
The Man That Can wouldn't be where it is now. The Man That Can wouldn't even be here, right?
Not a chance.
No, there's no chance. So, I had the lessons. I learned different ways to communicate and things like that. In London, I spent 3 years over there. Obviously, I had some experience with, the Sea Eagles, communicating with different levels of people who are some a lot older. And then also, years over there, then a couple of years in Sydney before I actually went and did my own business, which was the gym. And then I jumped into network marketing. So there's 5-6 years of learnings and, communication process there. to then get to somewhere like that. I'd 100%, agree that, the man that can wouldn't be here if you tried to do something like that out of, the building game without having those lessons and investing so much into personal development, into yourself, in your relationships. We're only chatting the other day on the other podcasters, how when you changed the situation or the community or the people that you're around, and how much better your relationships were with females.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I believe there's a lot of other men out there or people in general who have a lot of great stuff to offer, but they don't get past that first hurdle, right? When it becomes challenging at the beginning, whether they're trying to learn to communicate better or, they may be excited about, because I see it all the time. I have network marketers or just people trying to sell something slide into my inbox all the time. And I love responding and trying to give them perspective and value, because I was once those people. I don't ever go, fuck off. I'm just like, fuck, look at this person having a go. I fucking love it. Like, I think it's amazing. And, if I can encourage them, hopefully they stay on the journey longer than if I'm just another person who beats them down.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm the same. I enjoy when people prospect you or they send you an email or they call you or whatever. It's like, I'll give them, the time that I think is appropriate to give them.
Yep.
Depending on how they go on that road. If they kind of go pretty good and I'm liking what they're doing and I can teach them a lesson or give them some sort of advice or, steer them in the right direction, even if I have no interest in the product at all, I'd be like, you look, mate, this is not for me. This is not what I need right now, but I think this, and this, and this.
Yep.
I like, one, your attitude, blah, 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 blah. So I actually enjoy that process because, I've been there. We've all been there somewhere, right? We all have to start somewhere.
Yep, 100%. Most people will, yeah. I think that's a good thing for those listening. Like, everyone who's out there having a go, whether you don't feel it's the right fucking thing, they're going to learn from it. Like, so you have the opportunity to educate them. Right. And how you view it's not necessarily the best way either, but if you can provide some feedback and push them in the right direction, because it's like you said, you knew where you wanted to go. These people, and myself included, we all have an idea of where we want to go. Hence, we're going to try things and have to fail and learn new skills in order to get there, because who we are right now is not who we will be when we get to that next stop.
Yeah, and it's like, you're on that journey and you can see either other people on the journey a little bit earlier than you. You can see people who are further down the journey from you of where you want to go to. So you want to learn from them,
yep,
see what they're doing. And then obviously you want to give some advice back there and say, look, I learned this thing, don't do that, don't do this. And for people out there, it could be, for us, network marketing was, a side hobby. It was you getting out of the business game. I'm still in network marketing. I still love it, but it's always just a side project for me because I have the gym, I have a business, and that's what I love to do. So it depends on what you want to do. Like, people might do side hustles, like, affiliate marketing. They might, sell stuff online. They might, start their own podcast, whatever, right? It's get in there, do it, and learn from your lessons, because it will take you to the journey that you want to go on and 100%. The lessons you need to learn right now.
It's only like, I'm grateful, and whether, like you said, there's multiple ways to learn these skills, but I'm grateful I learned it in an environment where I didn't have as much to lose as I do right now with my business, right? Like, I think everyone could probably put their hand up and go, fuck yeah, I'd much rather learn those mistakes in a way where I don't have a whole heap to lose, as opposed to, if I was running a business with 10 employees, etc., and I made the same mistakes I made 5 years ago. Hell no.
Yeah, there's so much more on the line, and that's what attractive is into the network marketing, business or that kind of online stuff, where it's super low overhead. You already pay your phone, you already pay your internet. You've got to pay a membership that's between, $50 to $100 for a membership for a year for a business center.
Yep.
And then it's just you going out there learning the trade, and that's what is attractive. That takes a longer time to build it. But it's whatever you want to get into and whatever you want to go, just go in there and learn the lessons that you need to learn.
100%.
And fail fast.
So same with the podcast, because I know podcasts are going off like a frog in a sock at the moment, but your podcast is not going to get anywhere unless you learn how to sell, unless you learn how to interview, unless you have great listening skills. Like, there's so much that actually, like, it's easy to do, but to do well. And I learned a lot from doing a podcast with you the other day. There's so many skills to learn, but no one's going to listen to it unless you can sell them on the idea of listening to it. So we all need to learn sales. We need to sell ourselves that we are a person of value. Like, there's so many hurdles that we need to overcome, and we can either sit there in the mindset of, I'm this kind of person that will never change. Or you can go, let's fucking be resourceful and let's reach out to people like Cam or Lockie or other people in your life who you look up to who may have skills that you can learn.
I think that's the thing, especially right now, because, you know, podcasts are going to go through, online business is going to go through the roof. We're all isolated, right? It's COVID-19. We can't do what we normally do. This is the new normal. So where are the opportunities in front of us? But go out there and learn from the people who've done it, learn those lessons that you want to learn. If you want to, you know, dive into a podcast, you know, just do it. You know, what's holding you back? It's free. You know, there's so many different apps. You can go and buy a microphone or use a set of headphones. And, you know, and try. But I think it is the same thing. You know, some people say, you know, it's too hard. You know, the podcast market's too saturated. Where other people say, well, that's a challenge. That's a challenge. How do I overcome that? How do I get, you know, whatever, what's the feedback that I need to do? You know, who's doing this better than what I am? And they're the people who are always going to go through anyway. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's a podcast, if it's an online business, if it's, you know, selling cars or houses or whatever.
100%. I think we're starting with any of that. Like, the intention is one to do it for yourself. If you're doing it for yourself, then it's the next step. Like, one thing that is important for me to focus on with the business is like the men's health coaching space and life coaching space is flooding, right? And I wasn't the first in it. So, but what I'm focused on is I'm only focused on helping 200 men a year. Like 200, that's nothing. I can find 200 men easily, right? But people go, fuck, my business isn't, I'm not like this person or this person. And it's like, you don't need to be. Just figure out what's next for you and do that really well. And then, you know, if you hit that, then you can look to, you know, reflect and see where you want to go next. Because we spoke about this the other day. Like, I don't want to thrive online. My goal is to continue delivering really good value and stuff. But I don't want to sit in front of a computer all day. Like, if I were to build my business up how it was offline, online, I would be in front of a computer a fair amount of time. And it doesn't make me feel good. So I have no intention to fucking do that. I just have an intention to keep helping people and maintain to a degree that allows me to live a good lifestyle. And then when we get back, or whenever we figure out what this new normal is, I'll readjust and reassess then.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's like the new normal. But, you know, when you only want to help 200 men, right, probably in Australia, or it could even be worldwide now because it's going to be virtual for now. But the difference from helping 200 men versus someone who wants to earn 10K a month or 20K a month, right? That's their driving force, and that's going to come across in everything that they do, right? You want to help, you know, 200 men, you know, you've had to do the hard work to get the man that can off the ground. It started with a couple of men sitting around, right? You know, confessing that. But those 200 men are now going to find you. So you don't even have to go out and find them. They're going to come to you and say, look, I love what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. So, well, you know, to be honest, I can only do 200 men of work. I've got this, you know, workshop coming up, or I've got this program coming up. You know, do you want in? Otherwise, you can jump on these podcasts. These might help, or you can, you know, come to our inner circle and do this. Exactly. You know, they're just going to come to you, right? And then you're not selling yourself. All you're doing is delivering a really, really good product, changing lives. And everyone else is doing everything for you. And then you can look at, okay, what time do I have now to go and play golf or surf or, you know, train CrossFit or, you know, spend time with the, you know, family and things like that. So
man, I'm so keen for a surf.
Yeah, it's super important. I don't know. The Newcastle beaches are still open. We can surf, we can swim or exercise on the beach. You just can't be, you know, chilling out.
That's so good, man. I know we'll respect your time and we could probably talk all day. Two things. You're wearing a ring on your finger. What is it?
Not a wedding ring. Yeah. Yeah.
I've got the same ring on my finger.
Yeah, we're talking about this before. And we got, we should have just recorded that. So yeah, I mean, I'm wearing an Aura ring. I know you are wearing the same thing. So
I actually learned about them from you, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I didn't want to take your thunder. I was listening to a podcast, you know, and I heard it once, heard it twice, and I was like, you know, I love data. I love the process. I know we're going on right now, and it'll be funny. I might even grab my phone out. We're comparing our sleep from last night. We're comparing our readiness. We're comparing our HRV, which is heart rate variability. You know, yours is so much higher than mine. Like, I think my sleep score was 80. Yours was 81. My readiness was
always
80.
Coming in over the top, bro.
Over the top. Your readiness was 83. My readiness was 80. You know, and then your HRV was, you know, through the roof. Like yours is 130 and mine's 26, you know, and then we're just chatting about that. But, you know, to wake up every morning and talk about, you know, what this is, and all the data that you get. You get exactly how much deep sleep you get, how much REM sleep, so your rapid eye movement, which is your recovery sleep, how much light sleep, what time you fell asleep, what time you woke up, if you got up in the middle of the night and did a pee. You get your heart rate, you get your temperature. And it's crazy for us who, physically active. I like to train a lot. Obviously you're a heavy CrossFitter and just super active in a lot of things. We get, caught up in this data, but, it kind of dictates to what our health is. Why I really like the ordering is because if I was to get sick, coronavirus isn't a great example, but if my HRV, heart rate variability, started to go from 80 down to 75 to 71 to 69, I know in 3 or 4 days after that trend's trending down.
Yep.
I know about 3 or 4 days after that I would probably get sick with the flu or something like that. So I have the opportunity in that downward trend to change what I'm doing, maybe rest more, eat healthier, do some more lighter movement, don't train my body as hard physically. And it's crazy that what actually it does. And I haven't been sick apart from last year, and last year I got the chicken pox. So that was crazy.
Finally.
Yeah, I know, right?
Mate, yeah, I agree. I love the data, and when you told me about it, but there's so many other tools on the market for it. But reason why I enjoyed it is exactly for that. Like, I always want to be performing at my best. So it's important for me I even said it to one of my clients this morning, who's one of probably the top real estate agent in Brisbane. I was like, mate, it'd be awesome for you to get one of these just to see the stress you put on yourself throughout the day doing what you do. And then, it helps educate you or give you an understanding that you don't always have to come into the gym and thrash yourself. Like, sometimes it's better to have more sleep or a rest day or something like that, which is important.
And it goes to that that whole living approach, right? It's a ring that you can wear just at nighttime while you sleep can give you so much information for what's happening in your body internally, to then be able to look after it on the external. If it's not training today and doing yoga, or if it's going for a walk, or if it's, really, you're not really feeling it, but your actual body's really, really ready. So you ramp up your training.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
One final question. I haven't really asked many questions. It's more so been chatting. But what for you, and one thing, I love this question. I haven't even told you about this, but what's your definition of a man? I think the reason why I ask this question to everyone is because there's stereotypical definitions of men, but I also think it's important to understand as men, we can make that definition for ourselves. So I'd love to hear what your definition of a man is.
I think a definition of a man, with all that warning you gave me of 38 seconds while you're trying to explain it, is a man is someone who is in tune with themselves, like is, self-confident within themselves, is happy within themselves. For me, I know my own experience, and only speak on my own experience, the number one thing for me is, live life with no regrets, right? That's a saying that I have with myself. If there's an opportunity to do something, go and do it. But the overarching, thing for me is I've got to be happy. If I'm in a situation where I'm not happy, I've got to change or get out of that situation. Could be a job that I'm in. It could be a circle of friends. It could be a relationship. It could be just in general, like, I'm in a great relationship, or I'm, in a great circle of friends, but I'm just not happy. I've got to change something. Maybe I need to train more or train less or change something. So I think, you've got to be happy within yourself. A man is someone who's self-confident and happy within themselves. So that's probably how I would define a man.
Love it, mate.
Because everything else falls around that, right? Everything else will happen outside of that. If you're happy within yourself, you'll make time for relationships, friends, family, things that you want to do, things that you don't want to do, sacrifice you have to make. Yeah.
Fucking spot on, Cam. What final thing? Where can people find you? Where can people find Cam the Man?
Where can they find me? Instagram, Facebook. I think Cameron Russell, CAMRON Russell.
I'll attach the link.
You'll have the links there. Facebook. Obviously, my business is Snap Fitness Maitland. I'm always there if you want to email me for whatever reason. But
in the Maitland region,
region. Yeah, I live in Newcastle. It's a great area. But yeah, I'm happy always. You get hit up all the time, right? I've nothing, mate. Hey, mate, I've got this idea. I know you might have some experience in this. Would you mind helping? I'd 100% email you back or jump on a phone call with you if I can help you in any way, because it's, it's not about me. It's about the way that you approached it, the way you went about it, and you genuinely want some help.
I love it. Mate, appreciate you coming on the podcast. I cannot wait to hear people's feedback from this. I've got a heap out of it, and I got to look at your face for over an hour, which is always a bonus.
That it is. This is the new way, and like it's, you know, to me, it's been awesome to be on the podcast now, but obviously to see, you know, obviously knowing you since, you know, 7 years ago, and then seeing where this thing is going. I mean, mental health is very close to me. It's a big part of the physical side. We look at it in the gym, but I think, you know, especially right now, mental health is more important than any sort of physical health with what everyone's going through. And I can just see this thing's going to skyrocket because us guys, we don't talk about it as much as we should. You know, if we go to a barbecue, which we can't now, or if we go to a pub, you know, or catch up, I think the home barbecue is a perfect example, right? All the girls will go off into the kitchen and they'll just sit around chatting or sit around the time. They'll have a little bit of cheese and wine and talk. Whereas us guys will congregate around the TV and we'll have to watch sports so we can talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you'll rock up, you know, hey, Lock, how you going? Yeah, good, mate. How are you? Good, mate. Good. Yeah, beers are good. Yeah, sweet. Can't wait for this game. I know. And we go on this tangent, right? Whereas the girls actually they'll release some sort of their emotional side out of it, and guys don't. And I can only encourage that. You know, if you're not happy within yourself, just speak to it, because I've had, you know, close friends, family affected, you know, mental health issues. So for me, it's been, you know, I think it is super important. I put more emphasis on the mental health than physical health, but I know physical movement and exercise does help your mental side too.
They both affect each other, right? And I think they both are equally needed, right? Your mind affects your body and vice versa. So look after them both and train them both.
And that's the thing that people don't understand is, you know, physically you can get so much better at CrossFit, or you can get so much better at weightlifting, or you can get so much better at running, you know, because you train that. But you got to train the other side. You got to train the mental side. You got to train that mental muscle. You got to train that mental mindset. Whereas that's why I love, you know, the Man That Can is opening that can of worms, or is opening that door for that mental muscle to be trained.
100%.
You know, and that's just, it's such an important thing, because I know for me, and I check in with myself, why I went for a swim at the beach before and after, you know, one of the worst days in business was, it was my mental release, you know, and the swim wasn't even that physical, but it was just what I needed to do.
To switch off. Love it, brother.
Yep.
Thanks again for being on. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure we'll do plenty more in the future.
Sounds good. Love it.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm sure you got as much value as I did from actually chatting to Cam on that. As usual, if you got some value from that and you know someone who would benefit from listening to this episode, please share it with them. All you got to do is hit the link, share, slide into their DMs, or shoot them a text message, and the job is done. And if you want to go that step further and leave a review or a comment, that would mean the world to me as well. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you have an incredible week, and look forward to chatting to some of you in the future. Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.